Hi guys, this is Creative Cuts, a channel where I build, paint and create things. In today's video I'm going to combine my interest in ancient history with the far-flung distant future. In my last build I created some chaos terrain for my Chaos Space Marine army, link above if you want to watch that. But I've also been secretly putting together a bit of a Necron army too, so it was only right that I also build them a piece of terrain. I thought about some kind of obelisks, but then in the end settled on a ruined pyramid-shaped spaceship that had met its end thousands of years ago as it crashed on an unknown planet in a distant galaxy. So I set about drawing up some basic plans, as I knew I had to think this one through before launching into it in my usual style. I sketched out a basic triangle shape to scale so I could use this to easily transfer my design onto some foam. And speaking of foam, this is 20mm XPS foam, a great modelling material as it's much denser than regular polystyrene and also allows you to really carve details, as you will see later. I cut out the triangle and then used this to easily draw out the same shape on 3 other sheets of foam. I wanted everything to be as equal as possible. Once I'd cut everything out, I immediately realised my problem, that I'd only thought things through in 2 dimensions and I hadn't accounted for the thickness of foam. Rookie error. But not to worry, with a bit of slicing and dicing I made everything fit together. I glued all my pieces together to make a nice little pyramid. With everything dried, the real fun can begin. The destruction. I didn't really know where to begin, so I just started cutting away material from the central areas. I then just started to cut away foam more freely and let the knife find its own path. As ever, please take care when using a sharp knife, as accidents can and will happen. So always pay attention to the task in hand. I started exploring different ways to use the knife in order to make different kinds of marks. Sometimes using just the tip, giggity, and also playing around with how deep I carve into the foam, leaving some shallow areas that haven't broken all the way through. Once I'd started to think about the different kinds of marks and what was working, I tried out a spade end drill bit as it has a solid, sharp point. I kind of stumbled on this, but I have to say the results worked out great, and it just goes to show, with a little creative thinking, you can use tools in all sorts of interesting ways. I really enjoyed scooping away the material and watching the model take form by removing stuff. Strange, huh? All this scooping away revealed another flaw in my idea. Once I'd added all my holes, I quickly became aware of the foam material, its uniform thickness. The illusion is broken. For this to be a solid yet hollowed out object, the walls needed to be irregular in their thickness too. So I backfilled the corners by gluing some foam offcuts and let this properly dry. I then repeated the same process I'd applied to the outside, starting with my knife and roughly sculpting out some shapes before coming in with my drill bit special tool for fine details. I did this all over the floor too. Now I was really happy with how everything was looking, but even though I tried to be as neat as possible, I'm certainly no Egyptian pyramid builder. So I used some filler to tidy up some of the gaps and joins between the layers of foam. I also had the idea of using a pyrography tool to lightly melt some shapes into the foam. This kind of worked out, but let me know in the comments if you have any bright ideas about how I could do this in a better way. I took these metal hole punches, which I had heated, and used these to melt in perfect circles. And then used the pyrography tool to melt in the straight lines. I mixed up some Mod Podge with some cheap black paint to give this a solid seal, and primer in one, ready for painting. Now my Necron army, which is based around this blue-black mint-green combo, has basically made the choices for me in terms of what colour to paint this. But I really like this colour combination, so all good. I based in a layer of black-blue from Monument Hobbies, thinned with a few drops of water, and then applied this with my airbrush. I tried to apply paint to the intact areas of the top layer of whatever mythical material this flying space pyramid is made from. I blended some bright pale green, also from Monument Hobbies, from the top of the model. I touched in any areas of overspray with some black to sharpen the definition of the edges. And then with a large makeup brush, quite heavily loaded with paint, I came in with quite an aggressive dry brush over all the broken areas. I repeated this with a lighter grey and brushing over only the most raised areas to accentuate the shapes. Some areas were far too bright for my liking, so I misted back over these areas with some black in my airbrush. And now for the special ingredient in my Necron paint scheme is some Pterodon turquoise contrast paint. I don't use it in the way it's designed to be, but slightly watered down and more as a sort of high pigmented stain, I guess, a glaze if you will. This filter of colour works magic as it allows the colours from underneath to shine through while unifying everything together, whilst also adding another colour transition into the mix. The colours are suspended in layers and are constantly working together. I also wanted to add a different paint finish to the mix, so I crushed up some artist pastels and used these to make some homemade pigment powders. I used a small makeup brush to just lightly smudge this directly onto the model. This gives a wonderful super matte powdery finish to some areas, and the browny orangey tones go really well with the dark blue of the model. Now these colour choices aren't accidents. This is something that I'd thought through and tried to pick colours that would work well together. And that about wraps it up. If you like this kind of video, you can let YouTube know by hitting the like button. You can subscribe to stay up to date with all the latest videos, and share it with a friend who you think might find it interesting. I also have an Instagram where you can sometimes get a sneak preview of future projects. Now, I started with an idea from ancient history, sent it to the far future, and then gave it a long history of its own. Thank you for watching, and enjoy.